Hey, are you a six-figure female entrepreneur or just about there? Well, congratulations. That's a great achievement. But I know you're not done. You're ready to achieve the next dimension in your life and your business. And that's going to require you to conquer your fears and self-doubt, gain clarity and focus, increase your visibility, get strategic and intentional, and take massive action to execute on your goals. Now, does any of this resonate with you? Yes, I hear some of you saying, yes, this sounds like me, but if I knew how to do all of that, I would have done it already. Well, I hear you. Listen, you're not alone, and I have the solution for you, but you have to take the first step. See, what I know is that women like you are not content to sit on the sidelines and just wait for things to happen. Nope, you go get what's yours. So if you're truly ready to do what it takes to reach the next dimension in your life and your business, then I want you to join me for my free live stream masterclass and learn the 5 key elements badass female entrepreneurs must leverage to conquer self-doubt, increase their visibility, and execute on their goals so they can live life unapologetically AF. So now it's your turn. You have to take the first step. So reserve your spot now. All you have to do is go to bibmasterclass.com. That's B as in boy, Y, B as in boy, B as in boy, masterclass.com. Remember, it's free. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, where we empower women to connect authentically, build strategically, and live life unapologetically AF. It's time for women to embrace that they are powerful at their core and to leverage their expertise, resources, and relationships to build their business, their brand, and their badassery. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins, and we invite you to subscribe to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Our episodes drop every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern. So listen, enjoy, share, and subscribe. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Today, we are going to talk about money. Yes, something that we all need to know about. So my special guest today is Tracey Bissett, and I love her title. She is the Chief Financial Fitness Trainer of Bissett Financial Fitness Incorporated. So Tracey educates and empowers individuals, notably young adults and entrepreneurs, to take control of and live their financial lives with confidence, something that we all really need. As a former executive at TD Bank, Tracey has worked with and in support of thousands of individuals and entrepreneurs to secure the financing they needed. And now this hands-on experience that she has is coupled with her formal financial education. So she's smart too. She has a master's of business administration and chartered financial analyst designation. And we're going to ask about that because I'm sure that really means a lot in this world of finance. Tracey's positioned uniquely to coach all things about money. Tracey is a full-time professor in the financial services faculty within the business school at Centennial College, and she leads speaking engagements and is the executive producer and host of the Young Money podcast, all focused on increasing financial fitness. So if you have young people in your family who need financial education, I want you to make sure that you go check out that podcast. So Tracey was named the Silver Award winner for the IFSE Institute Award of Financial Literacy, get your words together, Kelly, Literacy Champion through the Wealth Professional Awards 2020 and Bissett Financial Fitness Incorporated, a worldwide finance awards 2020 winner. Tracey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's my pleasure to be here today.
So I want to start right where we were, where I said this must be really, really important. Then we'll get a little bit more of your background. But what does it mean that you are a chartered financial analyst?
So there's many designations out there around finance and personal finance. And most people have probably heard the terms financial advisor or certified financial planner. I'm not a planner, but this designation that I have, it's a rigorous 3 levels of exams, self-study, and it's quite elusive around the world. It's one of the only things I've come across in my life that even if you study your hardest, you can still fail because they set their pass rates at certain levels. So it took more than 3 years to get through for me. And so I credit my persistence and resilience to sticking with it. And I'm super proud of the accomplishment. And it means that I've put in the time and certainly have lots of knowledge around different elements around personal finance and particularly when it comes to retirement planning and investments and all kinds of things. But where I like to play and help people and business owners is to really make things simple so people can learn and actually take action. That's what I love.
And when we're talking about money, I think that's really important because I think people get so scared. It's funny. So I was at the hairdresser, and my hairdresser said, what is one thing that you would tell your younger self? And I was sitting there and I was like, I have no idea. Like, what would I tell my younger self? Because I'm pretty much the same, on the same path as I was. But then it came to me and I was like, oh, you know what I would have told my younger self? To be more intellectually curious about money.
Yeah, I would tell my younger self to invest earlier. Like I was really fortunate. I grew up in a house. We talked about money. It was always at the table, discussions around it. And my parents helped me start saving for my retirement at age 18. But I wish I had participate in little investment clubs like they have in high school and certainly in university they had them, but I felt like I wasn't as smart as those other people who were mainly men who were there at that investment club bragging about all the things they knew. And I wish I had have gone there. And I would tell my younger self, and I tell all kinds of younger people, like, get yourself there, learn. Nobody knows necessarily more than others. They just seem like they do and they pretend like they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, yeah, it would be around money and what money means and, how money, you can leverage money, right? For access and freedom and all of those things. And for you, and especially as an entrepreneur, and I know from reading about you that you entered into entrepreneurship as a kid. So I want to know about that. Talk to us about that, because I think that also helps people to understand your journey and where you are now.
Absolutely. So I have loved money since I was a little kid, like 5, 6, 7 years of age. And that's when we form our views around money. But I remember one summer, it was probably between grade 1 and 2. I wanted to go to the corner store every day in the summer and get some candies, get some chips, slushies, whatever. And the first Monday, no school, I went to my mom and I asked her for some money. So she gave me a quarter. And then the next day I went back and she said, no, that was your amount for the week. And I thought, well, this isn't very good. I want to go to the store every day. So I went outside with my friend and we brainstormed all these ways to make money because we wanted to get to that store. We had lemonade stands. We had little garage sales in our driveways. We made up little clubs. We sold lessons to kids. It could be skipping, tennis, whatever, even to play wedding in our little group. So for the parents, it was babysitting essentially at a really cheap rate to keep other kids busy. And we even had a little newspaper that we made, Flashy News. So we would go around and interview our neighbors, write our stories. We would get our dads to alternate photocopying this little newspaper, and then we'd have custom color covers for the newspaper. And so we did that for a while, and we got to the store quite a few days a week. But I learned really quickly that money can be this thing that helps you get to what you want, to get things that you want. And so for me, it was just, well, how do you get it? Okay, let's move on and let's get doing something to get it. And as I grew up, I did babysitting, and I would be sitting there calculating how many books could I buy based on how many hours I was babysitting. I had the privilege of being a part of Junior Achievement for so many years in high school.
Junior Achievement.
Yeah. Junior Achievement is an awesome program, and became top salesperson in my company a couple years in a row with some really terrible products. But I was persistent. I would go and knock on the doors. And so it taught me a lot of really great things. So that unemotional relationship about money, it's not one that most people have. And I just knew right away, not so rationally or so eloquently, but you can make money if you want to, you can find a way. And so it shouldn't be something that you think of as a barrier. And it certainly helped in my household. We were having open and honest money conversations.
Yeah. That is really brilliant as a little, child to have all of that. And also to have another child who was in that same
Oh, yeah.
state, right? Thinking the same things like, yeah, let's go do this. And it's funny because, when I was younger and we would have to go out and sell, all the, like what is it? Wrapping paper and
Yes, we did that too.
Right. The scholastic books and all of those things. But I never thought of entrepreneurship, right? My family, my mom, my dad worked, right, as employees. They weren't entrepreneurs. So I never thought of it in that way. But as you said, the conversation around money, one of the things that you just said that I think is so vitally important is the unemotional connection. And I think most of us grew up, or I'll just say many of us, I won't say most, many of us have grown up with an emotional connection to money. So Tracey, talk about that. Why is it so important to, I guess, say detach, right? Detach your emotions from money.
I think that comes as you age. But when you're a little kid, you're forming your views that are going to stick with you for your whole life. So if your parents are stressed, if they're not talking about it, there could be crying, there could be yelling, there could be lots of phone calls, there could be these bills coming in the mail and they're upsetting. It could be, I've talked to lots of young kids. I've talked to a 5-year-old, a little spark in the Girl Guides, who's told me money is evil. I knew when I worked with big sisters, I had a little sister who was 11 years old, and she said, I hate when mommy uses her credit card because she cries every night. Like, kids are picking up on all this stuff that's happening. And if nobody talks to them, they're forming their own views on what's happening. They don't even know what money is really. And so it's important as a parent, sometimes you don't know how to explain things about money because no one taught you. So it's okay to understand that you don't have the answers, but try to find the answers, try to find someone to talk to help your kids learn. There's great resources out there. And make sure that you're sharing with your kids, just not oversharing. We don't want to scare them, and we don't want them to feel like the walls are closing in and that life is terrible. But there's importance around, we live on a budget. Like, I clearly remember my mom sitting down and writing out a grocery list, and she would go to the store and buy the things on the list. There wasn't a lot of extra things going in the cart. We didn't have the money to do that. We had money for the things that we needed, but she sat down and priced that all out. And that was a good lesson to see. I mean, nowadays people just pop in the grocery store almost every day and they're just throwing things in there. And imagine if you had a list. I'm not saying we necessarily go back to that, but if there's more intention around it, we can certainly create life skills in young people.
Yeah. And those life experiences as children and the things that we hear and the things that we see form our money mindset. And so as we become adults, how do we change or shift some of those negative attachments that we have to money, or, like that little girl said, money is evil, right? And we've heard that money is the root of all evil, rich people are greedy, all of the things that are associated with money. So as we get older and as we're in our adult stages and, in our entrepreneurial stages, how do we shift that money mindset to help us to become successful in business and want to know about the money?
Absolutely. So the first thing to know is that the majority of the population has this scarcity mindset. So if you're doing well, Kelly, I'm probably doing poorly, because that's how our brains are just kind of hardwired to think. So the first thing we need to do is actually just start observing our reactions. Do we get a pain in our stomach when the bill pops in our inbox, in our email? How do we feel when we have to make purchases? When we're feeling upset, are we online shopping? Like, start to observe the way you're behaving. And then we can start to move ourselves from this place of scarcity over to a place of more abundance. And I'm not going to lie and say that we just flip a switch like a light switch and that overnight you're going to change. But certainly with devoted intention and sticking with it, you're going to be able to change the way you feel about things. So the first step is that observation. From there, there's a couple practices we can do that can help us feel more grateful. So first is that practice of gratitude. I woke up today. I was able to have a shower. I have clean clothes. I was able to go for a walk with my dog, and I had breakfast to eat. When we start appreciating the things that we have in our lives, it's a lot harder to look for all the things we don't have. So gratitude is one of them. Two, you've probably heard the expression, as I'm sure most of the listeners have, we're the product of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So certainly if we spend time with people who are very jealous, who are upset about money, who are always gossiping about this one or the other one, and all of that triggers then those feelings in us. So if we can spend time with people who are thinking about the positive, how to better ourselves, how to learn new skills, not being afraid if we make a mistake that the sky is going to fall in, spend time with those people. So I'm not suggesting we cut out the old people, but maybe we spend a little bit less time with those who might be triggering us in those feelings. And sometimes that can be our families. And so even with my own dad, I told him, I don't know if he's agreed, but we don't always talk about everything in my business because he doesn't share my views about things. And I don't need to be running all these things by him. I love him and he's very supportive. But we've put boundaries around what we're going to talk about specifically about my business. And then the third tip I can give you is to create some space in your schedule. I don't know how it happened, but certainly during COVID, our schedules got even busier because we could go back to back to back with Zoom meetings. Yes. And when we feel like that, we're tired, we're anxious, we're stressed, it's hard to feel positive about things. So make some little pockets of time where you can do something, either just sitting, relaxing, getting the calm that you need, or participating in some kind of activity that brings you joy. So that's also going to bring feelings of abundance that are going to come. And seeking out people who can give you positive information where you can learn. And it's like building a house. We've got to do it one brick at a time. We've got to make sure we have a solid foundation. So we're not going to learn everything overnight, but if we stay the course, we're certainly going to be able to change the way we think and actually approach money from a place of curiosity versus a place of fear.
Thank you. That was really good. I think because those are practical things that people can do, right? So sometimes we get nervous or we get scared because, we ask somebody for advice and then they're like, go do this. And you're like, I'm not even there yet, right? I need to get
so start with one thing, and
right.
Observation is the key. And then it's really easy for us to be grateful. As soon as you wake up in the morning, name 3 things you're happy about. Oh, the sun is shining. I don't have to rush this morning. I'm going to have the shower, and then try it again at the end of the day, and it'll start becoming a habit and a routine. And those are the kinds of habits and routines we want to cultivate.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I am focused on, especially this year in Ladies Who Leverage, which is our global network and mentoring accelerator, is around financial wellness. Right. And so we have, financial wellness training, and we also have a financial wellness portal. And one of the things that has come up in conversation is around cash flow. And, I'm making money. What do I do with it? Or, how do I get money into the business? And we know that women-owned businesses suffer for a lack of funding. Mm-hmm. But we also suffer that if we do have funding or we do make money, we're not necessarily sure what to do with that money. And so, people talk about cash flow all the time, but I want us to go let's peel back the onion and let's talk about what is cash flow, right? To begin with. And then also, what does that mean in terms of being an entrepreneur and being able to run a successful business?
Excellent question. And so many business owners that I work with, that's a question they have, but they're always afraid to ask. So firstly, for everybody listening, it's not your fault if you don't know anything about business finances. You started your business because you excel at what you do. So that's the first thing. But now you've heard me say that you have to be accountable for them. So you don't need to do it alone, but you certainly need to step up now that you've heard me say it. So the simplest way I can explain cash flow is money comes into your account, money goes out, and the timing that it happens is really the magic around it. And so most business owners, they know their sales and they know their expenses. And that's a construct through accounting or income statement or profit and loss, P&L, whatever we want to call it. And most entrepreneurs run their business either from that statement or just from their bank account. And when we're doing that, we're not thinking about necessarily the in of those collections of monies from a client and those outs, the timing of the payment of all those bills. And so we need to take it one step further. So really, depending on the industry you're in, if you're in an event planning business, you're not signing a contract with a customer unless they give you a 50% deposit up front. And then you get the rest of your cash the day before or the day of the event. Sometimes if we're doing service-based work, we might be dealing with corporate entities who might not pay us for 60 or 90 days after we send them an invoice. that's a lot of time we have to carry, that cash flow kind of crunch. And we've got to be able to have enough cash around to pay our bills during that time. So it's understanding what is your cash flow cycle in your business and what's typical in your industry. Perfect example, I'm getting a little brace made for my dog because she's hurt her knee. So I've been going for these series of appointments to get this brace made. So the first, and it's cost $1,500, so it's not inexpensive. So the first day I was there, the lady took a cast of her leg. And before I left, I said, would you like a deposit? She said, oh no, I don't take a deposit. So she's going to spend 3 weeks working on this brace for me. God forbid, nothing should happen to my dog, but she said it has happened. People don't come back because something happens, and now she's out. And so I was suggesting, you know what, you could take a deposit up front and start having some of that cash come in to pay for your time, your assistant's time, your materials, so that you have that cash to bring you through. Because what happens if I don't come back that last appointment and pick up that brace? So understanding what's normal in the industry and what's normal in your business. And a lot of times, small business owners think that they need to extend terms when they send out an invoice. So to allow someone to pay in 15 days or 30 days after they send it out, that's not normal. The bill should be due when the invoice is sent out. And so sometimes it's a modest change on your invoice, like due upon receipt. If you have a kind of a coaching business where you take full payment up front, or you might take half, get clear on what that's going to be and be confident in how that's going to go. If you want to have a few payment options, that's okay as well. But you want to make sure you understand that before you get going with your business, so that you don't hit these cash flow crunches, especially if you don't have access to credit or lots of savings that can kind of see you through. Certainly, I was working at TD during the 2008 financial crisis. I've been working with business owners over the last few years, and companies who plan, companies who have access to capital, and companies who have cash balances, those are the ones who are able to weather kind of any uncertainties that come along.
Yeah. You're talking about how people get paid, and a lot of women are in service businesses, right? So coaching, doing a lot of coaching, and they might get paid monthly, or they get paid quarterly, or they get paid yearly. And, thinking about when they sign up a client and they think about I just got a $10,000 client, right? Because that's your program, right? But that might be the revenue that you generated, but it's not the money that's coming in, because you're not getting all of that 10,000 at one time. So what would you say to those types of entrepreneurs about really paying attention and being able to leverage that in terms of understanding their cash flow and not getting behind?
Yeah, really simply, you can do it on a piece of paper, or you can open Excel. Like, you don't need to do it in some kind of fancy accounting software. Keep track of all the money that's coming in a month and how much is going out. And when you net those two numbers together, is it positive or it's negative? And then I always encourage my clients to at least forecast 6 months into the future, so that they can see if they're going to have a problem. And so if they see that in 3 months' time, maybe they'd like to hire someone and bring someone else on board, they can start seeing, what happens if I plug that salary in here, or those wages? Am I going to be able to afford to pay that person? Maybe I want to save up a little bit more in advance. Maybe I want to have a special offer where I go out to the market at a time I don't normally, to raise more funds, and I want to bring up cash coming in during that time. Maybe I want to have an incentive to get people to pay up front. So maybe there's additional bonuses if I collect upfront in full payments. And so thinking about all of that, it's not just on paper, what are your sales and what are your expenses, because the timing of that money coming in is absolutely critical. And I've seen lots of businesses go under in as quick as 90 days because they have sales but haven't collected anything, and they've still got to make those bills get paid. And if they don't have access to credit or have cash reserves, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think businesses are doing right when it comes to their finances?
If they've been around for any length of time, I would say more than kind of 5 to 6 months, I tell business owners, you actually do know how to manage cash flow. You might not do it efficiently. You might not talk about it the way that I do. There's certainly things to be learned, but you do need to take pride and be proud of the fact and be pleased with yourself that you've made it work together. however you've done it, you've accomplished that. And I sometimes I work with business owners who've been running their businesses for 20 years and they realize, you know what, I want to learn more about this financial side of my company. And the sheer fact that they've been able to make it work tells me that they understand it. But often what they're doing is they're kind of doing the mental math every single day. It's stressing them out at night. They're worrying, am I going to have enough for payroll? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? And so I want to help people learn how to manage it, how to forecast it so that they can actually bring their anxiety down. And once we do that, you can just see the weight lift off their shoulders. And as you know, Kelly, money permeates everything in our lives, our health, our mental space, our relationships. So if we're worried and stressed about the money and the cash flow, we're probably not giving our clients the full attention they need. And we've probably got some strains going on in other relationships in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they always talk about when you're talking about marriages that finance, right, is one of those topics that really causes stress and strain, and just in the family in general. And so, you know, businesses are doing good, right? But what do you think that we're not doing so well? What are businesses not doing so well?
So the first is not taking accountability. So like I said, there's no reason you should know how to do it, but if you're going to run a business, you need to be as proficient in that area as you are with marketing, sales, operations, your delivery, all of that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean you need to do it alone. So sometimes people think, well, I need to get to a certain point before I'm going to bring in support. That's not true. You can get support whenever you need it. The level of support you need and the way that changes may vary over time. So you shouldn't necessarily be doing your own bookkeeping. Hire a bookkeeper. Free up your time to do the other activities, but still keep your eye on those numbers and ask questions. The other thing I see is that business owners, especially women, don't get access to credit as early as I think they should. So I'm a huge proponent, as soon as you start your business, you should be going out and getting access to credit. And at that time, it's going to be based on your personal credit score. But get that small overdraft, get that credit card in the business name, and start the clock on the credit history for the company. Because then as your company grows, your access to that credit is going to be able to grow. But you're always kind of at time zero if you never start the clock. And then I do see one more thing that kind of shows up repeatedly, comes up around pricing. And I would say 85% of the businesses I work with, and I work with businesses across industries, sales are typically under 2 million, 85% are not pricing profitably. So they are losing money on pretty much everything that they're doing, which means they're not getting steady paychecks. And that makes it really hard to enjoy your business and actually sustain your personal life while you're doing it.
Yeah. Two things that you said in that that I just want to hone in on with you. So the first is around, I'm going to write it down because I'll forget by the time I start talking to you. See, I already forgot. But the bookkeeper. So I want to talk to you about the bookkeeper, because so many small businesses. So a lot of us are solopreneurs.
Yeah.
Right. And we're thinking, listen, I'm just trying to make money. And now you want me to go hire somebody. Right. And so when we're thinking about team and bringing somebody in on our team in terms of helping us to manage our finances and leverage our finances, would you say that a bookkeeper is maybe the first person that you should try to get? And I know that you can have those like fractional bookkeepers where they come in, at certain.
Yeah, they don't need to work full time for you.
I mean, yeah.
If your business is just getting going, you're only going to have a couple transactions a month for a while. So you can hire someone for 1 or 2 hours a month. If that can free you up to focus on sales, focus on delivery, focus on marketing, that is absolutely worth it, because I've seen so many business owners, as their companies continue to grow, because they didn't set things up properly, they repeatedly cycle into new bookkeepers who then charge them a lot of money to fix the mistakes of the past. It's time consuming and it's costly. And I sometimes see a cycle of people doing that many times over kind of a 5-6 year stretch. So start properly, get someone to set up the books. So in an accounting software, it's kind of like the skeleton we have in our bodies. The way the bones go, we need to set up the accounts in a certain way, and they know how to do it. You share with them how you're running your business and they can make the skeleton line up properly. So that's a good investment to be able to do that. And then things are going to be going properly. You want to interview them. You certainly want to make sure you get recommendations for bookkeepers. You don't just want to Google them and hire someone randomly, because that does not usually go well. So talk to people you know and trust. If you do have colleagues or connections who are bankers, lawyers, accountants, ask them for recommendations, ask fellow business owners, so that you can get somebody that people have had positive experiences with.
What about using online software like QuickBooks? I think there's FreshBooks. There's like different ones. What about using those types of software?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends though if you want to make that investment to learn. So I don't think all business owners need to do their own bookkeeping. Yes, they should have an accounting software at some point. They might be starting in Excel, depending on how big their business is going to be. But you don't need to be the expert at putting it into QuickBooks. So maybe you're doing your invoicing and then your bookkeeper is doing all of the other entries for you. But you're able to log on, you're able to look at the information, you're able to pull reports, but they're doing all of those entries for the month for you.
Yeah. But whatever it is, we need to have somebody who is helping us to make sure that we have all of that in order, so that we do understand what's going on with our businesses and our money. I have a coach and she always laughs because she's like, Kelly doesn't like to talk about numbers. I was like, I'm a lawyer. My sister is like a numbers person. And I'm a lawyer. So I have had to, on this entrepreneurial journey, really get my head into it, and I have a company that does all of my books and all of that stuff. But really to understand, right, and to look at the numbers and really understand what that means, right? Which goes into the next question I wanted to ask you about what you were talking about, which is around pricing. And the fact that so many entrepreneurs price based on what they see other people pricing, or what they feel that their client is gonna pay or not pay. Mostly what they're not going to pay, right, causes them to decrease the number. Talk about that in terms of how that impacts your ability to have cash flow and for your business to run successfully.
Absolutely. So I like to come at it two ways when I'm working with clients. First, I ask them, okay, what's the most popular thing that you sell, whether it's a service or a product? Okay, let's add up all of the costs that go into that. So what are the variable costs, the things you have to pay because you sold it? Okay, so let's figure out that. And with service-based entrepreneurs, they usually are not factoring in any amount of money for their time. So first thing they should do is pretend you've got to pay someone else to do it. Even if you're a solopreneur, let's pretend you're going to grow and at some point you're going to have to pay someone else. How much would that be? And that really turns the light bulb on in terms of, whoa, if I had to pay someone this, I need to put my price a lot higher. But then we also need to think about those things we've got to pay whether or not we sell anything. Insurance, all those things that are related to our website, any social media stuff, if we've got a shopping cart, those processing fees, all that kind of stuff. So we've got to put in some element for that. And then we want to have profit. So kind of starting from the bottom and adding those costs up. And you can do that on a piece of paper. And I always tell people, if we can't do it quickly, with a piece of paper and try to get to kind of a round number and estimate, then we're making it too complicated. So people should be able to right now grab a piece of paper and start adding up those costs. The next thing though is to go out in the market and look at what are other people charging. Not because we want to be cheaper or we want to be exactly the same, but we want to see who is their target client. How much value are they offering? Where do we fit in that landscape? And who are we then going to target? And if we can try to figure all these things out before we get started, we might actually revise our offer. We might change our target market, and we can do all of that with kind of knowledge up front if we kind of do a business plan before we get started. And if we're not making money, we're always going to be short. So we're never going to be able to pay all of our bills. We're not going to be able to take those steady paychecks. We might get into this situation where we're transferring from our business to our personal account and back and forth constantly, which makes a big mess of finances. And so it's very, very stressful. The other thing with growth is that growth is super hungry and requires cash to do that and access to capital. So if we're not making money and we're still growing, we're really kind of stretching things, and it's going to make it a really unpleasant experience. So let's get clear on how much we're making or not making, and then what modifications can we make. Very rarely is it a wholesale complete change of someone's business. It is a modification. It's changing target client. Maybe it's just factoring in additional costs. especially if you're doing something where everybody understands there's been an increase, inflation's at its highest point in so many decades. So people get that. People know things are more expensive. So what have you not been passing through to customers because you thought they were going to give you a little bit of a hard time? Just be realistic. The other thing that comes up when people articulate their price is these doubts and insecurities about their worth, which ties back to when they were a kid and they started having these stories running through their heads about money. So they might rationally get to what is the price and what do I want to charge my client target client. But then when it goes to come out of their mouth, they can't actually say it because they don't feel worthy enough to charge that amount. So if you can get the facts, that can help bolster you till you get to a place where you feel more confident in saying it.
Yeah. And, Tracey, some of what a thread, right, of what we've been talking about today is this kind of lack of knowledge. Why do you think that business owners have that lack of knowledge when it comes to business finances?
Well, certainly in Canada, and I don't think it's any different in the US, the school system does a terrible job at teaching people about personal finance, and very rarely do they ever talk about business finance. I know the only place I learned about it was when I was in my junior achievement program, and that was kind of after hours after school. So the curriculum wasn't teaching me. And when you decide to start a business, if you've gone to college or university, you're usually specialized in what you're learning. Even when you think about medical professionals, they might have one credit only on running a practice, but that's not the norm. That's not the main thing that you're learning. So I don't think business owners should have an expectation of knowing, but I think that they need to go out and seek that knowledge to fill in the gap as they see it. And that's what I do with my clients. I'm helping them learn about financial statements, understand their cash flow cycles, actually create forecasts, and then look and figure out how to use these numbers to move forward in their business. So that we can break down these barriers and it's not this thing that's a different language. That's one of the hardest things about finance in your business is like we're talking a different language. So imagine if you're learning Spanish or French, you had to practice. You had to look at it regularly to make sure that you could learn those terms and those different words. Same thing applies when we're talking about finance.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go, if somebody wants to just start understanding, what are all these terms? So listen, I heard Tracey talk about cash flow. I heard her talk about P&Ls. I heard her talk about, credit and business credit and all of these things. Where would you say, start here in terms of getting just even a base level of knowledge?
Like those books that are out there, books for dummies. So I don't want anyone to take offense at the title, but they're pretty good. Like Financial Statement Analysis for Dummies or Understanding Your Financial Statements. Listen to financial type podcasts. You mentioned my podcast that I have for younger listeners, which is kind of 18 to 30-ish. Sometimes we talk about entrepreneurship and business finances, but I also do a live show called Biz Money Talks, which is separate just for business owners. So find somebody that you like the way they explain things, and then follow them, build up on your knowledge. I just found a new Twitter thread yesterday, and this guy, he makes accounting simple, and he just puts Twitter threads every week. So ask around, ask other people who they learn from. In Canada, we have the Business Development Bank, and it's the Bank for Entrepreneurs, and they've got fantastic resources that everybody can access. So bdc.ca, they've got templates. They even have a financial management game that you can play to see how much do you know. So check with business associations in your local community chambers of commerce. They're all going to have really great resources as well. And check with your financial institutions. So if you're going and you're applying for credit, ask them what resources they have for small business owners, because they're going to have things, and you'll be able to then get a sampling and find out what resonates best with you, what makes more sense, and never, ever tolerate someone talking down to you, someone making you feel like you don't know very much. If somebody's spewing out acronyms at you and making it seem really, really complicated, that's on them. That's not on you, and they're not doing their job properly. So just move on to the next person.
Love it. Where can people find your live show?
On LinkedIn. So Tracey with an E, Bissett with 2 S's, 2 T's, as well as if you go to my website, BissettFinancialFitness.com, you can find the podcast as well as the live show recordings there too.
Awesome. Tracey, I love the way that you talk about this because, like you said, it makes it accessible. And I think for so many people are afraid to have the conversation because, as you just mentioned, there are people who will speak down to them or think, well, why you're a business owner? Why wouldn't you know this? And so then it turns you off because you're thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and act like I know when I don't really know because I don't want to be made to feel stupid. So I love the way that you talk about money. So everyone, please make sure that you go check out Tracey's website. Again, I love that she says she's a financial fitness trainer. We need fitness training for all kinds of things. And so our money is, just one of those things that we need to get trained about. So Tracey, thank you for being on the Ladies Who Leverage podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun to talk about all these money related things.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. And for those of you who are watching the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, remember our episodes drop every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you need to subscribe so that you never, ever miss an episode. And there are so many great episodes that we have done since our podcast launched almost a year ago. So we're very excited about that. So make sure that you go back and check that out. And for your female entrepreneurs, yes, Ladies Who Leverage is here for you. If you are a six-figure female entrepreneur, or maybe you are just about there and you are trying to find a community that is not only going to help you to connect authentically so that you have other badass women who are helping you and supporting you and pushing you, but going to help you to strategically build your business and provide training like this in financial training to make sure that your business not only grows, but you get to sustain that business so that you can live life unapologetically AF. I want to invite you to check out our community. It's a global network and mentoring accelerator. You can go to lwlcollab.com. That's lwlcollab.com and check out Ladies Who Leverage. And I can't wait to have our next guest on. I can't wait for you to really dive into the episodes that we've had. And this one, really sit down and listen to this episode with Tracey and take great notes. And until then, unleash your badassery and live life unapologetically AF. Take care. Thank you for joining us. This podcast has been brought to you by Lady Lawyer Media. Make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you are a female entrepreneur or business owner and you're looking for a safe, supportive ecosystem to create and share ideas and information, build a thriving business, and live life unapologetically AF, then I'd invite you to apply to Ladies Who Leverage. We're an exclusive community of badass female entrepreneurs. So if that sounds like you, go to www.lwlcollab.com. That's LWLCOLLAB as in boy.com so that you can apply to join us in our amazing badass network. And until then, I want you to unleash your badassery and live life unapologetically AF.